Don't you worry, the clip's about to begin, but don't forget to subscribe. Or else, don't make me turn this website around.
All right, coming up we got Ashley in California. Ashley, how can we help you?
Yay.
Hi, hello, can you hear me?
Yep,
Yeah.
we can hear you.
Hello? Oh, I'm so sorry. This is my first time. Excuse my stutter.
That's okay.
Yeah, so I have a couple of questions about common commonalities between media and misinformation that a lot of people seem to associate with trans people. A lot of the people in my area are generally watch things like Fox News and things like that, and me and my friends get harassed a lot for being trans, and mainly I feel like it derives from this deeply ingrained fear and misinformation that they are being told of, I guess. And I was wondering what topics could I bring up in conversation, or maybe scientific topics that support trans identities instead of negating or denouncing that trans men are men, or that trans women are women. I have attempted or endeavored to try to research on my own, but I would like to get more of a professional opinion from you. I guess.
Professional.
So that I'm sorry.
No, it's good.
No apologies needed.
Yeah. So just.
Sorry, go ahead. No, it's okay. Finish off.
Oh yeah, just information that I can use in I don't want to say an argument, but sometimes it does get there, I guess. Something to tidbits of information that I can use to help support trans rights within the law, and also just on a scientific level, I guess.
Yeah, for sure.
Katy, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, so I think perhaps something I should link in the comment. I should probably link all of the things that I've mentioned, or perhaps the line can do that. I don't know, but so there's this post that I often search for. I think if you Google a comprehensive defense of trans people, there's a Reddit thread where someone has gone through. I think it's a few years old now, but they've gone through and they've written so much. Here is all the studies that support this position, like transition helps children. Here is like 30 studies that support this position. Trans people should be able to get access to healthcare. Here's like 30 studies. There are some very good science resources out there, and I've actually for a while been meaning to do my own one, to just start, maybe read a study every week and then write a little summary and add it to a list. And it's, there is science out there to back up these positions. I mean, there's no way that trans people got to this position without the science. I think that should be, anyone who's opposed to, thinks that trans people are anti-science or something, it should be a bit of a reality check. How we've got to a position where we're this disadvantaged against, irrational prejudice and stuff, that we've got healthcare that can actually help us, and we're actually starting to get rights. Like, the science is probably on our side. So I think it is out there, but it's a bit more difficult to find because there's so much misinformation, bullshit. But yeah, so I recommend that post, and hopefully I'll try and remember to link it in the comments. I think the first thing that I do when I'm discussing with someone who is anti-trans rights is to find out the reason they are. There's a few big reasons that lots of people are. Sometimes they are religious and they think their religion says against it, and in which case, depending on a religion, I mean, if you're in America, it's likely they're a Christian, and you can come in with an angle saying, well, trans people aren't mentioned in the Bible, and Jesus says to love and accept everyone. And, often you can make this religious argument, but then sometimes they will have other reasons, and it's often a rational prejudice that you have to chip away at. But they could have the sort of the feminist / defending women argument, in which case you're going to have a different strategy to, like, the religion one. In religion, you can just say your God doesn't say trans people are bad, so what are you talking about? Whereas when you're talking about defending women, you're going to have these arguments where you're explaining that actually their fear of trans women and women's spaces is nonsense because, for example, in the UK, trans women have always been in women's spaces. So if you're worried about suddenly trans women attacking everyone, it just hasn't materialized. I think with someone who's quite anti-trans in general, you often just have to pick one little fact and really hammer it in so they just cannot, that was a weird hand gesture there, you have to really ram in this fact, sorry everyone, to just like chip away one little thing, because they're often just going to have this general narrative that trans people are bad. And you could say, okay, I'm not going to take you on any of this, but what I am going to do is I'm going to say it is just demonstrably true that healthcare for trans children, what the experts are saying is what we should be doing, because 99.5% of the time, the people who we diagnose as trans, the treatment makes their life better. And we can just show that. So, yeah, you might have some argument about safety or sports or blah, but okay, we'll deal with those another time. I'm just going to go in on this one point. And then they'll always change the subject. Like the amount of times I have this argument, they'll say, what about trans kids? And I'll be like, well, actually, this is not the case. And what you said is nonsense. They'll be like, yeah, well, what about sport? And you can kind of do that forever. But if it's someone who you're going to interact with again, you can say, okay, well, I just want you to acknowledge my point about trans kids. So you're not going to say this again, right? You're not going to say trans healthcare is ruining children's lives again, because I've just shown you this is false, right? And then next time you can take on a sports question. So, there's a lot of angles here. People have a lot of things to say. The misinformation about trans people is mad, and they will deflect around. And do not let them deflect around. Pick one thing, destroy them on it, and then go away and come back another day. That's my advice. Anyway, Arden, go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's important, kind of what Katie's getting at too, is that it's really easy when their positions aren't based on evidence to pin them down to an irrational position that they can't like tenably hold with their other positions. One thing that's great is to point out that like things like the World Health Organization and a lot of these major organizations for like healthcare and things have positions, like public positions that they've stated on trans healthcare. And you could say, wait, so I just want to be clear that you think that you have enough knowledge and information to contradict the World Health Organization's position on trans rights. And they'll have to say yes, which is
this is brilliant meme. Sorry to cut you in. There's the Principal Skinner meme where it's like, am I out of touch? No, it's the children who are wrong. But there's a brilliant trans one. It's like, am I out of touch? No, it's that. And then it's a list of like 50 different medical organizations which support trans rights who are wrong. It's like, yeah, okay, I'm sure that the World Professional Trans Healthcare Organization knows less than you. Like, mister, I spent 3 minutes on Google this morning. Anyway, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was a short point. I think you covered most of it, but I think, just once you have those points and like, I agree, the Reddit thread is great. There's quite a few creators out there who are, using a lot of rhetoric to defend trans rights, who have their own documents that are probably have a lot of overlap in studies. Once you have that information, it's really easy to pin these kind of people down into holding a position that makes them, if anyone else is watching nearby, maybe you won't convince that person, but the person who's next to them while they're arguing the point is going to go, oh, wait, that does sound crazy. They definitely don't know enough to, speak over all these health organizations. I think, don't get beaten down when the person that you're directly talking to doesn't change their point on the matter. That's probably not going to happen. I think what's more powerful is you're going to make them think when they leave the situation, and anyone who's around you, they're going to be more impacted by that. By that conversation.
Yeah, I think always argue for spectators. Like that's my strategy on especially on the internet. The person you're talking to is never going to change their mind. their friend might. One other point that I would just add here is, I think the biggest antidote to all of this misinformation against trans people is trans people existing. I've met people before who come out with this transphobic garbage, and then I just talk to them like a human for an hour, and then they're like, you're all right, actually. And I'm like, that defeated transphobia in their mind to an extent. It won't cleared it. But the unfortunate thing of being a minority is they're kind of judging all trans people and their interaction with you. They might have met a trans person before who was flipped out of them, and they're like, oh, all trans people are crazy. And it's very easy for that to happen when someone's being transphobic to you, for you to be upset about it, and suddenly they think all trans people are easily upset. But that does mean also that you have the power of, if they say something shit to you and you'll be like, well, that's actually factually wrong, but I guess you can think what you want if you want to deny science. But anyway, I was just like playing computer games like a normal human. I was just like, having fun with my friends at the pub, and like, these normal things. And it kind of breaks in their mind, because they're like, oh, these trans people are all crazy perverts who trying to take away children's rights and sneak into bathrooms. It's like, what I spent the weekend doing today was like walking with my friend's dog, like a person. And that's the best way to do it. So it's kind of rubbish to say, if you just present yourself as a normal person, like fuck normal, but if you just are yourself, and you'll break their stereotypes in front of them, and they'll come up with these excuses to cling on to them. But if you're like, well, I'm not only going to crush your points, any of them, keep bringing them, but I'm also just going to show you that your prejudice about me is garbage by being a human in front of you. I'm going to do a human, mate. So yeah, that's what I'd add as well. I hope that helps. Does that address? Do you think that's given you any ideas?
Yeah, of course. That helps so much. I really appreciate it. If you don't mind, I have one more question.
Okay.
Go for it.
So as I said previously, my area is not very accepting, but I'm very lucky to have an accepting school. And they have, we're not back in class, we're online, but I'm assuming either next year or the year after that, we're going to go back. But when we do, I wanted to establish a GSA club or something similar. And I was wondering how I could prevent those who want, or those who feel like they are being bullied from being bullied, because there's quite a bit of bullying going around at my school right now, especially cyberbullying, because of our quarantine. And I was just wondering if there's any methods of prevention that I could implement with something like that, or just cyberbullying in general. I guess.
I mean, take liberal use of the block button. People act like if you block people, you're afraid of debate or you're just being irrational. No, fuck that shit. If people are giving you crap, you have every single right in the world to block them, put them out of your life and your mind, deny them all access to you that you can. As far as in-person stuff, that's harder if the adults in the school aren't willing to support you. I think knowing your rights, knowing what the rules of the school are really important, so that you can take it to the relevant authorities based on the severity of any of the bullying or threats. But yeah, you don't have to it's really hard to just say you don't have to let that happen, because I've definitely been there, and it's a lot harder to assert that when you're made to feel like less than human. But yeah, I think being informed on your rights and knowing who to address issues with, and being relentless. The squeaky wheel gets the grease. If you're going to be showing up on whoever the person that you would turn this information into's door every day, saying, "Are you addressing this yet? Are you addressing this yet?" Eventually, they're going to have to do something.
Yeah, definitely. My it's very difficult with bullying. The sad reality is that probably every trans person is going to experience some degree of bullshit. I guess learning to deal with it emotionally yourself. I mean, if you have a club, like, it'd be great to, I'm sure there are organizations out there. This is something we should look up for future Arden, something we can link. There must be guides out there of how to emotionally deal with when someone's bullying you, and how to not let that affect your self-confidence. And perhaps your club could say, oh, here's some tips, here's some resources, how to handle being bullied emotionally, because sadly it's probably going to happen, and it's good to be able to deal with it. And also learning how to react to it. I think, I got bullied at school, and my way of dealing with it is to not react. Sometimes when you flare up against people, like I foolishly did earlier in the week with my chocolate scenario, people come at you harder when you react, and sometimes letting them say their stupid little insecure, weak, transphobic garbage, and then just being like, all right, is the way to end the bullying. Though that can be very difficult when someone's in your face and you're forced to be in the school with them. Yeah, so I think being practical about how to deal with it is equally important to combating it.
All right, was that helpful for you, Ashley?
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you immensely. I really appreciate it. I think that's all. Thank you for having me on and answering my questions.
Thank you for
Thank
calling.
you so much for calling. All right, have a good one, Ashley.
Thank you.
You too. Have a fantastic rest of your week.
Hey, thanks for checking out this clip for The Line. While you're here, hit that like button, hit subscribe, turn on notifications, and then share this with that bitter uncle of yours who loves talking about the good old days.